Behold, the glorious Lavos Warframe, the best frame for all of the things, except for the things they are not the best at, and for Lavos in particular, that is not a lot of things. Lavos doesn't use any energy. This means that any situation where you have trouble getting energy, or you need to have a lot of energy over a long period of time, Lavos is really good at that because it doesn't use any energy. Instead, the abilities have cooldowns. When you helminth an ability onto Lavos, it also gets a cooldown generally proportional to what its energy cost was. Now, if the ability has a duration, then Lavos has to wait till the duration is over to get the cooldown, but Lavos' normal abilities sort of don't have particularly significant durations. And so Lavos' ability duration stat also gives Lavos status duration, because that's kind of the primary version of duration that Lavos actually uses. Most of the primary effects of Lavos' abilities are status effects. And so the other thing that Lavos can do is hold these abilities to imbue an element into the next ability, and you can combine them as well. So you might hold Ophidian Bite to add Toxin, then Catalyze to add Heat and get Gas on your next ability, or you could just use Toxin or just Heat. And so that gives Lavos a lot of versatility, and it means you can do effects like Radiation is the one that I always come back to, that lets you add a radiation to enemies that will last a lot longer than 12 seconds, which is the base for Radiation. You could have Radiation that lasts 30 seconds pretty easily, and have something similar to a sort of chaos effect on basically any of Lavos' abilities that you want, and a lot of them can hit a pretty big area. So what do? So Ophidian Bite heals you. Lavos has naturally high max health. That's a little random, but it's really nice. And you have an ability to heal yourself that doesn't cost energy and is on a reasonably short cooldown. Now, you could just use your operator, but the freedom to not have to stop what you're doing and go into operator, and also do some damage or some kind of controlling effect, is better. That is good. That is a convenience. You may value it more or less, but that is certainly powerful. Not a tool a lot of Warframes have, and it's something nice to have on hand. Vile Rush, probably even better. Such a short cooldown, and you can throw out so many status effects over such a large area, and again, just so frequently. Yes, it gives you some movement. It's a moderately fast ability, okay, but the main thing is just the amount of map that this ability can cover. It's also particularly nice for going down hallways, because you rush and throw vials in sort of a line along your path, and so if your enemies are only able to move in a line, then you're going to fill that whole area with status effects those enemies probably would rather not have on them. So a very powerful ability. And then Transmutation Probe, which we talked about a bit before. This ability reduces the cooldowns of your other abilities as it hits enemies, and the cooldown is reduced more with efficiency. This is largely for Catalyze because it has a much longer cooldown. Vile Rush and Ophidian Bite, you could do one of them and then Transmutation Probe to pretty much immediately do the other one again. And so that's nice. It's a good option to have if you want to really saturate enemies with status effects. A very complicated combination of key presses could quickly get you Ophidian Bite into Vile Rush, into Transmutation Probe, into Ophidian Bite, into Vile Rush, with a ton, basically every status effect on enemies. Not literally, but very, very close. And that's pretty powerful. That's an option that pretty much no other Warframe has. We don't have a lot of situations where that's powerful yet, but using a few of them, again, just applying long radiation to a large number of enemies for free, basically as often as you want, is very powerful. That's really good. If that weren't enough, Catalyze is a fairly significant damage dealer. This ability does more damage the more status effects you have on enemies, and so you can stack up things with all those other abilities and then actually kill the enemies with Catalyze. After they've been flailing around radiation attacking each other, you can, actually kill the enemies and do the thing. Pretty powerful ability. These abilities all have really good range, pretty generous base range, but also, the range is useful on them. And because Lavos doesn't use energy and kind of doesn't have that many super significant durations, Lavos' stats are also just not very hungry. It's pretty easy to go ahead and build a bunch of strength if you want Catalyze to kill stuff. It's okay to build a lot of range if you just want to hit everything. You can squeeze in both. Lavos is pretty naturally tanky and has the heal. So a very versatile frame that lets you do whatever you want, and also comes with a lot of other specific tools. If you happened to run into an enemy that you needed a certain status type against, you would have it on hand. If you use another weapon and you just don't quite kill an enemy. You will because Lavos gives you that status duration. Imagine grazing an enemy with a Hunter Munitions weapon, and then for Lavos, that you're going to do twice as much damage with each Hunter Munitions effect because they last longer. Generally, you don't want to wait for enemies to die, but this happens every so often in a mission, and in those situations, Lavos is really, really good. Now, I know what you're thinking. Pretty high praise, right? Lavos must be my favorite Warframe. Isn't that right?